Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be diving into business etiquette for dummies.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, we're hoping to find some of those little nuggets of wisdom, things that maybe you wouldn't expect
Yeah.
to find in a book about etiquette that can help you get ahead in the business world.
I think this is going to be a good one. I've been looking through this book,
Yeah.
and it's really fascinating how much it emphasizes first impressions.
Oh, yeah, especially for those just starting out.
Right. Not just for like interviews or, the first day at a new job, but just
Yeah.
all your interactions. I think that's something people don't always think about.
Right. It's not just about being likable, right?
Yeah,
It's about really showcasing your competence through those little details.
exactly. And the book has this really great analogy about it.
Oh, yeah.
They say good manners are like handrails on a rope bridge.
Okay.
They're there to guide you and offer support.
Keep you from falling off.
Exactly. Especially in the business world where things can get a little shaky sometimes.
That's a great way to put it. I like that.
So it's really about, making sure you don't stumble and really projecting that image of reliability and respect.
Yeah, especially when you are just starting out.
Right. And you want to make a good impression.
For sure, for sure.
And it's interesting because the book doesn't just talk about the obvious things,
Like what?
like dressing appropriately or, showing up on time.
Mm-hmm.
It goes deeper than that into like the nuances of nonverbal communication.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
So, for instance, did you know that maintaining good eye contact can actually make you seem more trustworthy?
That's interesting. I've heard that before, but never really thought about it in a professional context.
Yeah. And I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, you don't want to seem like you're not paying attention or shifty-eyed or whatever.
Exactly. And even something as simple as a firm handshake can have a lasting impact.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It conveys confidence, shows you're engaged.
Yeah, you don't want to have like
A limp fish handshake.
the dead fish. Yeah, nobody wants that.
It's funny how those little things can speak volumes.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we've all had those experiences where
Yeah.
you meet somebody and you just get like a bad feeling from like one little thing.
Exactly. And speaking of making a good impression,
Yeah.
the book talks about thank you notes,
Really?
which I know it seems a little old-fashioned in the digital age, but
I was going to say, who even writes thank you notes anymore?
well, apparently they can really set you apart from other candidates.
You think so? I mean, I guess it makes sense. It's a nice gesture, but do you think people really take the time to read those and actually factor that into their decisions?
Well, the book mentions this study where hiring managers were actually way more likely to remember candidates who sent handwritten thank you notes.
Really?
Yeah, they said it showed initiative and genuine interest.
Yeah, that's true. It's like going the extra mile.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be this long, drawn-out thing.
Yeah, like a novel.
Just a short note expressing your thanks,
Yeah.
mentioning something specific you talked about.
So they know that you are actually paying attention.
It's exactly.
Okay, so we've covered first impressions,
Right.
which are obviously super important. But what about once you've actually landed the job?
Oh, yeah. Then the fun really begins.
Right, you're thrown into the mix with all sorts of different personalities.
Well, the book calls this decoding workplace dynamics.
Mhm.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Oh, I bet. Fill me in.
It's almost like a field guide to dealing with all those different characters you're going to meet.
I'm guessing it's more nuanced than just like team player or difficult coworker.
Oh, way more nuanced. They have categories like the bully, the braggart, the know-it-all,
Oh, I know a few of those.
right? Everyone does. And they even have the socialite, the one who's always planning parties and events.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So it's all about recognizing these types
Yeah.
and then figuring out how to deal with them effectively.
Okay, so let's take the braggart, for example.
All right.
How do you handle that without coming across as rude or dismissive?
Well, the book suggests acknowledging their accomplishments, briefly,
Right.
but then subtly try to steer the conversation in a different direction.
So you don't want to encourage them, but you also don't want to cause a scene.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance.
Okay, what about the bully, though? Those are always tricky.
Yeah, and actually the advice here surprised me.
Oh, how so?
They say it's crucial to stand up to a bully from the very first instance,
Really?
even if it seems like something small.
Huh. I always thought it was best to just ignore it and hope they'd go away.
Apparently that can backfire.
Oh, no.
Because if you let them get away with those little things, it can actually make them worse.
So it's about setting boundaries early on and making it clear that you won't tolerate that kind of behavior.
Exactly. And it's not just about protecting yourself.
Right. It's about creating a healthier work environment for everyone.
Right. And it's interesting because the book also warns against this other common pitfall,
Which is,
taking on other people's problems.
oh, man. That's so tempting, though, especially when you're trying to be helpful.
I know, right? but it can be really detrimental to your own work.
And you can get burnt out really quickly.
Exactly. So the book really stresses the importance of, staying in your lane, focusing on your own tasks and responsibilities.
It's not about being selfish or uncaring.
Right.
It's about setting healthy boundaries.
Exactly. You can be supportive without taking on the weight of the world.
Okay, so we've talked about first impressions and how to navigate those tricky personalities.
Right.
What else is there?
Well, now we're getting into the art of polite conversation in the workplace.
Okay, seems simple enough, but I'm sure there's more to it than meets the eye.
Oh, definitely.
Like what?
Well, the book stresses the importance of being clear and concise and always tactful in your communication.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about all those nonverbal cues?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
And then there's the whole issue of office gossip.
Ugh, don't even get me started on office gossip.
It's like a minefield.
I know. And
Yeah.
the book actually has some really useful advice on how to handle that.
Oh, good, because I need all the help I can get.
Well, the first thing is just don't engage, even if you're just listening.
That's hard.
I know.
Especially when you're trying to be friendly and you don't want to seem like you're not interested.
Yeah, but even just listening and not saying anything can still be damaging.
Oh, how so?
Because if you're there when it's happening, people might think you agree with it.
And then you're contributing to a toxic environment.
Exactly.
I'd have thought about it that way before.
Yeah, so it's better to just avoid it altogether.
Okay, so what if someone's like gossiping to you and you don't want to be rude?
Well, you can always try to subtly redirect the conversation to something more neutral.
Oh, that's a good idea. Or I could just pretend I have to go to the bathroom.
Exactly. Or you can just politely excuse yourself.
Right. You don't have to participate.
You have the power to create a more positive environment.
It's about taking responsibility.
Exactly.
Okay, so besides avoiding gossip, what else does the book say about polite conversation?
Well, another key point is active listening.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It's not just about hearing what the other person's saying,
Right.
but actually engaging with their ideas, asking clarifying questions, showing that you're really paying attention.
And not just checking your phone while they're talking.
Exactly.
That's so rude.
It's all about showing genuine interest and making the other person feel heard and understood.
Okay, so it's not just about getting your point across. It's about creating a space for meaningful dialogue.
That's a great way to put it.
And that all ties into inclusivity and respect.
Absolutely, especially in today's world where workplaces are becoming more and more diverse.
Right. You have to be so careful with what you say.
In how you say it.
And your body language and everything.
Okay, all connected.
So much to think about.
I know.
Okay, so we've tackled first impressions, tricky personalities,
Right.
and polite conversation.
Uh-huh.
What's next on our etiquette adventure?
Well, how about business meals?
Oh, no.
You don't sound too thrilled.
I mean, I've definitely had my fair share of awkward moments at business dinners.
Well, this is where the book really shines.
Oh, good, because I need all the help I can get.
It breaks down business meal etiquette in a way that's practical and surprisingly entertaining.
Entertaining. Okay, I'm listening.
So imagine you're at a business dinner with a potential client or maybe a senior colleague.
Okay.
You're trying to make a good impression, but you're also starving
Yeah.
and you have no idea which fork to use.
Been there.
Right? It can be so stressful.
Totally. And then there's the whole wine thing.
Oh, but wine.
I'm always so intimidated by those long wine lists.
I know, right? But don't worry, the book's got you covered.
It does. Okay, what does it say?
It covers everything from how to hold your utensils properly to how to order gracefully and even how to handle the bill without causing a scene.
Okay, that's good to know. And what about the wine?
Well, it actually walks you through the basics of wine tasting.
No way.
Yeah, so you'll learn how to hold the glass swirl, the wine, assesses its aroma and flavor.
Never thought I'd be learning about wine tasting from an etiquette book.
Right. But that's the beauty of this book.
What is it?
It's packed with practical advice that you can actually use in real life.
So it's not just about memorizing a bunch of arbitrary rules.
No, it's about understanding why we have these etiquette rules in the first place.
Oh, okay. I like that.
It's about the principles of respect and consideration.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
And once you understand that you can navigate any social situation with confidence.
This is really making me rethink my whole approach to business etiquette.
Really?
Yeah, it's not just about which fork to use.
Right.
It's about building relationships, fostering trust, creating a more positive work environment.
You've got it.
I like that.
It's those small gestures, those unspoken things that can make a big difference.
This has been so insightful, but before we move on, what about the digital age?
Oh,
I
right.
mean, surely that's thrown a wrench into traditional etiquette rules.
You're telling me?
So how do we navigate all of that?
Well, that's where we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay. I'm especially curious about email etiquette
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
and social media.
There are so many unspoken rules,
I know.
and the book actually offers some really surprising insights.
Oh, good. I can't wait to hear them.
So stay tuned.
All right. So last time we were talking about how the digital age has like thrown a wrench into the whole etiquette thing.
It really has like a whole new set of challenges.
Totally. And I think one of the biggest ones is email.
Oh, yeah. Email's a
I
minefield.
mean, it's like there's this whole unwritten rule book for email etiquette.
There really is, and luckily this book actually does a pretty good job of like spelling it out.
Oh, good. I need some guidance for sure.
Well, for starters, it talks a lot about the importance of using a professional tone.
Okay, that makes sense, but what does that actually mean?
Basically, just avoiding anything that's too casual.
Like what?
Slang emojis, definitely no emojis in work emails.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And just overly casual language, like you're talking to a friend.
Okay, and I guess proofreading is super important too.
Oh, yeah. Huge typos and grammatical errors can make you look really unprofessional.
Yeah, I've definitely been guilty of that before, like sending an email and then realizing later that there's like a giant typo.
We've all been there.
Okay, so besides the tone, what about the content itself? Are there certain topics that are just like off limits for work emails?
Yeah, the book advises against using your work email for personal stuff,
Like what?
like venting about your colleagues or your boss,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
or discussing sensitive personal issues.
Right, it's about keeping those boundaries.
Exactly. Your work email is for work.
Makes sense.
And speaking of boundaries, the book also talks about using laptops and stuff during meetings.
Oh, yeah, that's a tricky one. It's so tempting to just like check your email or browse the web when you're sitting in a long meeting.
I know it's so hard to resist, but the book says unless you're specifically using your device for the meeting,
Like taking notes or something?
right, it's best to just keep it closed and put away.
Yeah, I guess it shows that you're paying attention and being respectful.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like making eye contact in a face-to-face conversation.
Right, you wouldn't just like pull out your phone and start scrolling while someone's talking to you.
Well, some people do.
Yeah, but it's rude.
Agreed.
Okay, so we've covered email and laptops in meetings.
Mm-hmm.
What about social media?
Oh, boy, that's a whole other can of worms.
I know, right? It's like everyone has a different opinion on what's okay and what's not.
Yeah, and the book actually has a whole section on social media etiquette.
Oh, good. I need some guidance.
Well, the main thing is just being mindful of what you post.
Right, because even if your accounts are private, your colleagues or clients or potential employers could still see it.
Exactly. And it's not just about avoiding things that are like overtly offensive. It's about anything that could be perceived as unprofessional.
Okay, so no drunken party pics.
Probably not a good idea.
Okay, so separate profiles for work and play.
Exactly. Keep those worlds separate.
But what about connecting with colleagues on social media? Is that okay, or is that a recipe for disaster?
It's tough, the book says, to proceed with caution.
Right, because you don't want to blur those boundaries.
Exactly. And even if you are connected with colleagues, you still want to maintain a level of professionalism.
Okay, so no ranting about your boss on Facebook.
Probably not a good look.
Even if you think they can't see it.
Right. You never know who's watching.
So true.
And speaking of tricky situations,
Yeah.
the book also talks about office romances.
Ooh, juicy.
Yeah, it could be a bit of a minefield.
Gosh, sure. I mean, what could go wrong?
So much. But the book basically says if you're going to date a coworker, you need to be discreet.
Okay.
Avoid PDA,
PDA.
public displays of affection.
Oh, right. Yeah, no making out at the water cooler.
Exactly. And be especially careful if there's a power dynamic.
Like if one of you is the boss.
Right. You don't want to create an uncomfortable situation.
Oh, okay. And I guess you also have to think about what happens if you break up.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. Things can get really awkward.
So maybe office romances are best avoided altogether.
Probably a good idea.
Okay, so moving on from matters of the heart, the book also addresses a more serious topic,
Which is,
sexual harassment.
right. Unfortunately, that's still a reality in a lot of workplaces.
And it's so important to know how to deal with it.
Absolutely. And the book provides really clear guidelines for recognizing and addressing sexual harassment.
Okay, what does it say?
Well, first of all, it emphasizes the importance of speaking up.
Right, don't just stay silent.
Exactly. And if something happens, document it.
So you have a record.
Right. And then seek support from HR or a trusted supervisor.
It's so important to know your rights.
Absolutely. And the book also talks about how preventing sexual harassment is everyone's responsibility.
Right, it's not just on the victim.
Exactly. It's about creating a workplace culture where everyone feels safe and respected.
And that ties into the whole idea of ethical dilemmas.
Oh yeah, those tricky situations where you have to decide between what's easy and what's right.
Like when you're tempted to fudge your expense report.
Exactly. Or bend the rules to make your numbers look better.
It's easy to convince yourself that it's just a small thing
Yeah, but those small things can add up.
and create a slippery slope.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the book really emphasizes the importance of honesty and integrity.
Even when it's hard.
Right. And if you're ever in doubt about something, ask for clarification.
Like from your boss or HR.
Exactly. Or a trusted mentor.
Okay, so it's about having a strong moral compass.
Absolutely. And recognizing that your actions have consequences.
Not just for you, but for everyone around you.
Right. And your company's reputation.
It's like we're not just navigating the workplace, we're shaping it.
That's a great way to put it.
This has been so helpful. It feels like we've covered so much ground.
We have. It's amazing how many little things there are to think about.
I know, but it's clear that business etiquette is about so much more than just knowing which fork to use.
It's about building relationships, fostering trust, creating a more harmonious and productive work environment.
Exactly. It's about making the workplace a better place for everyone.
Well said.
So before we move on, what about work-related social events?
Oh, this could be tricky too.
I know, right? Like, how do you strike that balance between being professional and also, like, letting loose and having fun?
Well, the book actually has some good advice on that.
Okay, all ears.
Well, first of all, it says to think about your goals for attending the event.
Like, are you there to network or to learn new things or just to socialize with colleagues?
Exactly. Your approach will vary depending on your objective.
That makes sense. I've never really thought about it that way before.
Yeah, and the book also emphasizes the importance of being prepared to engage in conversation.
Okay, so have a few conversation starters in mind.
Right, and be ready to talk about your work in a way that's engaging and interesting.
And be genuinely interested in what other people have to say.
Exactly. It's about being proactive and
Mhm.
approaching those interactions with a sense of purpose.
Okay, so what about those awkward moments when you find yourself standing alone and you don't know who to talk to?
The book says just smile, make eye contact, introduce yourself,
Oh, that's simple enough.
and ask open-ended questions to get the conversation flowing.
People love to talk about themselves.
They do. So just be a good listener and show genuine interest.
Okay, good advice.
And then there's the whole issue of after-hours socializing with colleagues.
Oh, yeah, like when you go out for drinks after work?
Exactly. The book says to be careful about how much you drink.
Right, because you don't want to do anything embarrassing.
Exactly. And also be mindful of your conversations.
No gossiping about the boss.
Right, or complaining about work.
Okay, so basically just use common sense.
Pretty much.
Okay, but what if someone else starts gossiping or complaining? How do you get out of that situation?
Well, you can try to redirect the conversation to something more neutral.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Or excuse yourself to go to the bathroom and get another drink.
Right, or just say you're not comfortable discussing that topic.
Exactly, you don't have to participate.
It's about setting boundaries.
Precisely. And those boundaries are so important for maintaining your professional reputation.
And having healthy relationships with your colleagues. Exactly. You can still have fun without compromising your professionalism.
This has been so eye-opening. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too. It's amazing how many nuances there are to workplace etiquette.
But it's clear that it's all about respect, consideration, and creating a more positive work environment for everyone.
Well said.
So before we wrap up, there's one more thing I'm curious about.
What's that?
We've been talking a lot about American business etiquette.
Right.
What about the rest of the world?
Oh, yeah?
Are there any major differences we should be aware of?
Oh, absolutely tons.
So how do we navigate all of that?
Well, that's where we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay. I'm excited to learn more.
It's going to be a whirlwind tour of global etiquette.
Awesome. Can't wait. Okay, so we're going global with our etiquette knowledge.
We are. Passport ready.
Ready. Let's say we just landed in Japan for a big meeting.
All right.
What are some of the, top things we should be thinking about etiquette-wise?
Well, the book really stresses the importance of business cards in Japanese culture. Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. It's not just a quick exchange like it is here, right?
No, not at all. It's almost like a whole ceremony.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you present your card with both hands and a slight bow.
Okay.
And when you receive their card, you do the same thing.
So it's all about showing respect.
Exactly. The business card is seen as an extension of the person.
That's interesting.
So you want to treat it with care.
Makes sense. What else should we be mindful of?
Gift giving is another big one in Japan.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that too, but I'm always so nervous about giving gifts in other cultures.
I know it can be tricky.
Yeah, you don't want to accidentally offend anyone.
Right. Well, the book says it's customary to bring a small gift for your hosts or business partners,
Okay.
and you usually present it at the end of the meeting.
Okay. And what kind of gifts are appropriate?
Something representative of your home country or region.
Oh, okay. Like
Yeah.
a local specialty food or something.
Exactly. Or a handcrafted item.
Okay.
And make sure you wrap it nicely. Presentations is really important in Japanese culture.
Wow, so many things to think about.
I know, but it's all about showing that you've put in the effort to understand their customs.
Right. It shows respect.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered Japan. What about other parts of the world? Any other etiquette surprises waiting for us?
Oh, tons.
Yeah.
Let's hop over to Europe for a minute.
Okay.
Dining etiquette is huge in a lot of European countries.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. For example, in France, it's considered really rude to refuse food offered by your host,
Even if you're full.
even if you're stuffed.
Wow. Okay.
It's about showing appreciation for their hospitality.
Okay. I guess I could force down a few more bites.
And the pace of meals is generally much slower than in the U.S.
Oh, yeah. I've noticed that.
It's about savoring the food in the conversation.
Right. Not just like scarfing down your food and running off.
Exactly.
So patience is key.
Definitely.
What about communication styles? Are there any big differences we should be aware of?
Oh, yeah. Huge differences.
Like what?
Well, in some cultures, direct communication is really valued. But in others, a more indirect approach is preferred.
That's interesting. I can see how that could lead to some misunderstandings.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so important to do your research and be prepared to adjust your style.
Right. You don't want to come across as rude or insensitive.
Exactly. And in some Asian cultures, for example, saving face is a really big deal.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about that.
So you have to be very careful not to cause anyone to lose face.
Okay. That makes sense.
It's all about being aware of those cultural sensitivities.
And showing respect.
Always.
This whole deep dive has been so fascinating.
It has, right?
I mean, I knew etiquette was important, but I never realized just how much it impacts our interactions with others.
It's really about so much more than just knowing which fork to use or how to write a thank you note.
Right. It's about building relationships, fostering trust, navigating a complex world with grace and sensitivity.
I love that. So well said.
So as we wrap up this etiquette adventure, what's like the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I'd say it's this approach. Every interaction, whether it's in a boardroom or a bistro, with a genuine desire to connect,
Okay.
to understand and to show respect, etiquette, is really just a framework for expressing those values.
I love that. So no matter where you are in the world,
Right.
remember that a little bit of etiquette can go a long way.
Absolutely. It can make all the difference.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of business etiquette.